Clay, do you have a favorite Ninja Turtle?
I was always a Raphael man myself.
Yeah. He's the adult's choice of Ninja Turtles, I think, right?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where in retrospect I feel like he's not. Because I think he's...
You think you grow up and you become a Leonardo fan?
I think so. Yeah. Or if you're intellectual, you become a Donatello fan.
And if you're just a slack-jawed podcast host, you become a Michelangelo fan, I think. So.
You know, one of the great mysteries of pop culture to me has always been the Turtle Power song from the Ninja Turtles movie, where in the lyrics of that song, he lists off all the Ninja Turtles, and then he says the last one he lists is Raphael, to which he says he's the leader of the group, which anyone who knows anything about Ninja Turtles knows that is not the truth.
That's on the short list of facts everyone knows about the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, everybody knows Leonardo
after them being
the
turtles.
Heavy weighs the Ninja Turtle crown.
Leonardo leads. It's in the song. Leonardo leads.
It is. It's in the song.
That's all he does. Leonardo kind of leads in this one.
Raphael is cool but crude. Is that what he said?
Yeah, Raphael is cool. Yeah, cool but crude. Michelangelo's
or rude.
The party dude. Rude. Yeah, it's probably rude. Yeah. No, my kids got into... They didn't get into the Ninja Turtles. They saw something about the Ninja Turtles, and whenever they see something, they're always like briefly like, what's this all about? So you show them. And I was like, you guys aren't going to believe it. There was a cartoon I used to watch called Ninja Turtles. It was like, I watch that show all the time. I'll show you. They're like, this is great. It's not great. That show does not hold up whatsoever.
And you showing them the original one?
The original Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
I remember watching that all the time, but it's... That's terrible. That's a terrible... Kid shows in general have come light years beyond what that was, where it's like it's so slow, so boring, and they just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah. That's the secret, is most of those shows that we revered as children are awful.
Yeah. Merchandise like sellers, obviously. But
absolutely. Yeah. This is the 40th anniversary of the Ninja Turtles. I am impressed that they have managed to keep coming back decade after decade.
Yeah, especially after the cartoon.
They keep making them. They keep making cartoons.
They make new ones. Yeah. Seems a little bit better.
But yeah, I saw someone on Twitter say something about like, we had no idea how good we had it as kids with something as quality as the X-Men cartoon on every Saturday. Yeah, and I was like, dude, I can tell you one thing. The X-Men cartoon lives in your memory from the beginning of the theme song to the end of the theme song. If you go back and you watch that show,
you remember the big hits. If you read the comics, you remember that they did, there's a Cable story, and then there's the, they did the Dark Phoenix. They hit all the big things that they have to hit, but getting there is a hell of a journey.
Batman the Animated Series, that holds up. Most of the other ones don't.
Yeah, if only there was a podcast about that.
If only there was a podcast.
This episode is called Concerning Flight, and we're here to talk about Star Trek Voyager. So let's do it. It is the 11th episode of the 4th season of Star Trek Voyager. It came out on November 26, 1997. Teleplay goes to Joe Menosky. Story credit goes to Jimmy Diggs and Joe Menosky. Directed by Jesus Salvador Trevino. In-universe date is 51386.4, which is 2374. In Concerning Flight, when pirates steal the ship's main computer and other critical equipment, Captain Janeway tries to track down the missing equipment with the help of the holographic Leonardo da Vinci. How do you pronounce the guy's name? Is John Rhys? Is it Rhys? You pronounce that Rhys, right?
I think it's Rhys.
Rhys. Yeah. John Rhys-Davies.
Rhys. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. John Rhys-Davies.
Concerning Flight. So... this is one of those episodes that
we end up talking about Ninja Turtles for 40 minutes.
It might be. We
don't have much to talk about.
I have to come in somewhat dramatic. If I was in a bad mood, this is the kind of episode that would make me go, I'm just shutting down the podcast. I thought this one was like egregiously bad, and it's gotten me into thinking about like we've been doing this for so long, right? We're like different people now than when we started this podcast 7 years ago?
Almost literally, because it's every 10 years your entire cellular body turns over, right?
That's a better plot than this episode, if that was a Voyager episode. But 10 years ago, the podcast started. Younger, didn't have kids. Was I married? I must have been married. Yeah, I was married.
Married.
Just a simple job. Everything's going fine. And now it's like, as you're getting older and older, my time becomes more critical. Like I respect my time much more. And I find that the Voyager episodes that I just feel are a complete waste of time to be super obnoxious when I have to watch them. And I thought this one, there's potentially an argument this is like a 2, but I really hate this episode. And I think it's terrible.
I'm just imagining one of those like time-lapse things where you're sitting watching Concerning Flight from Voyager season 4, and your first son comes in and he's like, I've lost my first tooth, Dad. And then he leaves, and then he comes back in, he's like, Dad, I'm getting married. And then he leaves and he comes back and he says, Dad, I'm going to be a father. And you're still watching Concerning Flight.
It's like the giving tree of Voyager episodes.
Just every time he talks, you got to rewind it because you missed something. You got to make sure you talk about it on the show.
Yeah, it just
for those $15 in Patreon money that the people are putting towards here in this one.
Such a whore. No, it's really one of those, like, I think that it's like just at the point of where we are in our lives at this point. It's just like when I started the podcast, I think I just had less going on, and it was like it was okay with like a sort of stupid Star Trek episode, and now it's just like, because I tried to finish this at night, right? Or I tried to watch it at night. I fell asleep in the first 10 minutes, and so I finished it this morning, and the episode was so bad. It was one of those where I was like, do I have to rewatch the first 10 minutes? Because I feel like I've missed a lot of information about this. Like,
I am tickled that this is the one that's finally broken you.
you thought this was like a three of an episode?
No, I think I'm just, a little
we've
bit,
gone through so much that this is the surprising episode.
Yeah, I think this one was like the definition of inoffensive. Like, to me, it's I don't think it was good.
Yeah,
but I think I liked it a bit more than you did, but I just, that's why I find it funny that of all the ones we've watched over the years, this is the one that finally made you reconsider the entire endeavor.
I think it's just the fact that this felt like utterly pointless. Like, just utterly pointless. They're like, for an episode that is like, it has these things, like you have Da Vinci, you have this stolen plot thing, you have this like trying to fly in a glider story, you have a guest actor, like you have the stuff. It's really just like, it's a great Voyager pinnacle example of what is, like, what's this about ultimately? Like, why did you do this? Why does this have to happen? And I think maybe this is a good leaping off point. I think a catastrophic mistake Voyager made
you mean launching pad?
Is the EMH Doctor character has completely destroyed whatever the rules used to be about holographic characters in Star Trek. He's like, he's made it to the point where none of it makes any sense, and now you have to treat all hologram characters like they're real characters, and you can't just be like, hey, Da Vinci, can you shut the fuck up so we get out of here, like, so we can run away. I just think it's that's the thing. Now that I've remembered, that's what I thought I missed in the first 10 minutes when I was watching this the second day. It was like, why doesn't she just turn him off? Or who cares about this holographic character? Like, why doesn't she just leave him behind? Did I miss something? Has he been created in a sentient way through this? But he hasn't. He's just the hologram down there that she goes down and, I don't know. I thought it was stupid. What say you?
Yeah, I thought it was ultimately pointless. I found myself equally flummoxed by the way that they treated the holographic character. Mostly in a large part because I was thinking about the specifics of how things work. Because I'm like, wait a minute, this ship took a bunch of shit from the ship, and like they took the entire CPU from Voyager. Like, where I understand the concept of the holographic emitter being like a hotspot for the hologram, but is it still projecting out of the holodeck? Like, is this thing still localized on Voyager? Is that
the emitter?
Is that how this works? No, like the actual hologram of Da Vinci that's walking around on the planet.
Yep.
If you went into the holodeck and said end program, would he disappear?
Oh, that's a good question. Or if you deleted him on Voyager, well, I guess they're saying he's downloaded to the emitter or something, right? Like he's
okay,
down there.
Sure. Like that's the thing. It's like I don't know. Not that it really matters, but I don't know what the limits of this holographic emitter thing are. No. Which is why when you get into an episode like this, you end up in this weird pseudo, like, kindergarten interpretation of Measure of a Man type thing, where it's like the completely artificial construction of a hologram of the Encyclopedia Britannica understanding of Da Vinci all of a sudden touched grass for the first time. And like, and you're just like, But I don't know. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with this.
They make huge leaps where Tuvok and Janeway have some scene where they're like, this man, for all intents and purposes, is Leonardo da Vinci. And it's like, how can you say that? Like, all they know about Da Vinci is like his writings and his work and his art and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, do you know?
They pause him in the middle of the episode. They pause him.
It's just so. I think the EMH did damage to this because in TNG they wouldn't have had this problem where turning like they were there. I like the idea of there being a distinction between Data and the holodeck people, where it's like Data is something else other than what the holodeck people are, and the holodeck people are, except for the villain, the Moriarty character who like becomes larger than the holodeck, which is a big thing in that story. They're just kind of like they're just toys that you can play with, or it's like it's acknowledged to be a computer program. Here, I feel like this was another episode where it's like, is Janeway unhinged? Why is she not reacting appropriately to what's gone on here? There's no reason to be obsessed with this Da Vinci character. It's A, not Leonardo da Vinci, and B, it's just a hologram that's running around down on the surface. And I think that, to a larger point of the EMH, I don't think they've defined effectively what makes the Doctor special in terms of being a hologram or anything like that. So it's like, I think you're in rough shape. And outside of the Da Vinci stuff, this just felt like your greatest hits of how you put a cliche Star Trek together. And, they steal something from the ship. You got to go get it back. You run around in the San Fernando Valley for half an hour, and then you go home. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, and it's not even like Da Vinci was some sort of metaphor for something Janeway was dealing with, which would have made this worth more.
Yeah.
She's just like, no, I just like hanging out with him and I want to see him happy.
Yes. They don't get it. Like, they don't have anything. They don't have a real relationship.
The villain disappears halfway through the episode and then he just doesn't come back.
Yeah, he exists to get hit on the head so that they can run out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like what I checked out on this episode about halfway through. Once I'm like, okay, I see what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And then like once I realized the villain wasn't coming back, I was like, oh, this is nothing. This is worthless.
Yeah.
The more interesting episode was happening on the ship, which I found to be for all of the episodes where they've done they've given really interesting plots short shrift because they have to stuff the episode with like B plots that are sci-fi and weird. This one had probably the least amount of B plots and the least amount of focused B. There's like there was the Doctor thing, which was like one scene, and then there was the Seven thing, which was like one scene, and then the rest of it was all Da Vinci.
What's Seven's second scene? I remember the Seven and Doctor scene. What is Seven?
There's the scene with the first scene with Seven and Harry, where Harry's like, "Listen, you gotta learn how to not sound like an asshole when you talk to people." Yeah. She's like, "That's inefficient." Like that.
But he stands very close to her for too long.
Yes. When he has I loved that because he walked into that personal space of hers and he reacted the way people on television shows react, and she reacted the way a normal human in the real world would react, which was very funny.
He got too close to her backside, and she turned, and they were just awkwardly nose to nose.
Yeah. You know? And he's like, and she's like, "What are you doing? Get away from me." I thought the doctor stuff was actually probably could have been a better episode.
Yeah, that's because fun, at least.
Yeah, and you've got this thing. I mean, if you want to do something looking at holograms in the real world or holograms existing outside of their permanent space,
it's the obvious contrast in the episode.
Yeah,
right? The prisoner.
You've got the doctor.
Yeah.
Exactly, the doctor who has gotten used to free reign all of a sudden is now confined to the sickbay again.
Yep.
What does that do? All of a sudden he's into gossip and shit. He was never into gossip before.
In a real like licking his lips kind of way. He's like, yeah,
it was.
How'd that make you feel?
So did you when you fought? Did you like touch each other?
I liked it. I thought his performance elevated the material there, but it is the contrast seems obvious, but those the two holograms don't talk to each other, and I don't think
they need to talk to each other. I think it's just that it is a good contrast to whatever's going on the. Honestly, I don't give a shit about what's going on with Da Vinci. Like, send Janeway and Tuvok on a 3-scene chase to get that shit back, and then spend the rest of the time with the Doctor, who's
just going back
to
being
yeah,
back to being imprisoned. I would agree. I guess this episode started off as the working title was just Da Vinci's Day Out, and like the whole concept kind of springs from this idea that they have this guest actor.
Yeah, I can see them just wanting to do something more with John Rhys-Davies, because I mean, like my first of only 2 notes that I took on this episode was it's always nice to see John Rhys-Davies. So I can see them being like, yeah, we should do something more with him. What do we do? I don't know. We'll put the holo emitter on him. He can walk around and shit.
Yeah, I was even so negative on this. I was like, this guy's doing the like generic job. That this is how European stage actor plays Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, of course, But like, someone of his caliber phoning it in is better than most people on any Star Trek show.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I would have just. I don't know why they felt the need to stick with the Da Vinci.
Katerina, come with me to the vineyard. He's like, give him an Emmy.
This man owns the show. He's the captain now. Look at me. Look at me. I'm the captain now. Yeah, it's it's kind of frustrating in its lack of being about anything or having anything to do with Janeway or anything to do with the. I mean, the reason I feel Janeway to be unhinged is that. First of all, when they take the computer core out, I would expect Voyager to have more problems than it does, which it seems to be a normal ship. It's just missing its computer core for some reason. But her just going down to get this thing back, it's the lifeblood of the ship. It's necessary. And she's just overly concerned with what this hologram that her and Tuvok, as you say, pause when they don't want it to hear what they're talking about, or when Tuvok has to leave or something. And why is Tuvok lying to it?
I don't know.
Like he says he's Scandinavian for some reason. It's like, is this?
Yeah, for some reason he has to keep up the illusion of the hologram. I don't know why that's important. Like, isn't the way that these traditionally work? Well, yeah, and also the way that these traditionally work on the holodeck is like if you walk into like a gangster scenario and you're dressed like you're from Star Trek, they go, "Hey, get a load of this guy's duds. Where are you from, pal?" And you're like, "I'm from the planet Vulcan." Like, Vulcan? What's that over outside the tunnel?
Yes.
Like they stay in character. They all process it.
Yeah. No, they were afraid they're going to blow his mind, which also...
I hope everyone enjoyed that third voice that I have now. You'll never hear it again.
Holodeck character, Italian holodeck character who doesn't know where things are. The thing that gets into the end is that, they've been treating Da Vinci as a real person or whatever, and treating him as the this is Leonardo da Vinci. Like, we have to respect this man. He gave us so much. It gets to the end, and Janeway is like, admit you're fucking stupid. And she's like, do you think the sparrow can understand what I'm saying to it? And he's like, no, I don't think so. She's like, maybe you're the sparrow in this allegory, you motherfucker. And he says, yes. So it's either amazing. The show is either saying that Janeway's smarter than Da Vinci, or she's just humbling a holographic character to its face. And I don't know which interpretation is supposed to be better, but what a waste of time. But anyway, they get on a glider and they don't crash it, which I was hoping would happen, and they fly out. That's it.
I don't even remember. How did they get the thing back? I don't even remember how they get it back.
The core?
Yeah.
They just beam it back, don't they?
They just beam it back.
It's one of those episodes, too. The whole time you're going, why don't you just beam the fucking thing back? Just get it. Get this stupid thing. They don't. And also, it was very convenient.
I was just going to say, I wish Tuvok had been like, Captain, can't we just shut this thing off and get on with our day?
It's also very convenient. He left the glider right to where they ran to in the end. He just left his glider there, and that's good. It's effective. Voyager's
How come he knows how to work with all those metals and shit?
Like the Star Trek metals? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Like he's Leonardo da Vinci. He's quite clever. He knows how to fly the glider. How come Voyager? I find Voyager's choice of things to add to the show to be very strange in a lot of ways. Like, I found the Bally's Total Fitness Club workout thing. That was strange. Generic French bar was the best, but it was also very strange. Like, why this?
Yeah, like that's a good example. If you walk into Chez Fook and you start acting like a crazy person, fake Kramer is going to respond to you in character.
Yeah, yeah, he will.
You want to play pool or not? I don't care where you're from.
Why Da Vinci? What does Da Vinci bring to Voyager that makes it go, oh, of course, it has to be Leonardo da Vinci that is a recurring holographic character on this show? Sherlock Holmes makes sense for Data. There's like a deduction thing going on there, and he doesn't understand the mystery. But here, it's just, I don't know what the point is.
Da Vinci was on a voyage, an artistic voyage of the mind.
He was. Why not Raphael? Why not Donatello? Why not Leonardo?
I don't know. It would be fun if it was just Janeway painting the Sistine Chapel with Michelangelo. That would be fun.
Yeah. Do you buy Janeway? I guess, Janeway being into Leonardo da Vinci makes sense, I suppose, is her.
I'm a little bit sad they dropped the Victorian thing, because that was more interesting. That at least had a weird psychosexual bent to it. Instead of just like, I'll never figure out how to sculpt.
Weird. This continues the sort of very interesting choice that they're making, which is that Janeway is always submissive to the hologram that she's working with. Like, she's the mentee in this relationship. And my favorite part was when they were running away at the very end. There's a long shot of them, and he takes her hand and leads as he runs. It's like, it's this weird submissive relationship she has with either the Victorian novels where she's just the housekeeper or something who needs to talk to Mr. Darcy, or here she is, kneeling at the feet of the master. And that's the relationship she has. She's into some sort of dom sub thing, apparently.
Honestly, I think this episode gets 25-30% better if you just give Janeway some sort of obstacle or like internal struggle that this is all sort of, helping her work out. But she's got none of that. It's just find the thing, get the thing, leave. Yeah.
And she does it for the captain goes off and does it for some reason. It is find the thing, get the thing, get out of there. I guess the original idea, Minosky, I was just looking at the background notes. Minosky hated this episode or the way that it turned out. It had started as this Da Vinci's Day Out kind of thing, and I get the impression it was kind of like it's almost one of those things that there's no crew involved. And his problem was that he says it's one of those episodes that got killed in the writer's room because I had the idea that, like, basically it sounds like the emitter just ends up on a planet somewhere. Like the emitter just ends up in this random situation, and Da Vinci is in the emitter and he has a little adventure. And apparently the room had a real trouble going like, well, how did the emitter get there? And he's like, it doesn't matter. We'll just say that it got there. And they said, no. Like, people are going to complain. We need to understand how this emitter got there. So the whole villain setup to the theft and everything is a result of the room trying to explain how the holo emitter got to the planet in the first place. And it's like
time orb.
Yeah, right. Just to get the prophets involved and fix things like that. But it's so, I mean, if that's the case, it completely undoes whatever your episode is supposed to be, because 90% of the episode is about the theft at this point, and it's like, who cares? Because the theft is pointless, stupid, and honestly, just, my resolution is just beam the stuff back. If they beamed it away from you, just beam it back, and you'll be okay.
I mean, I would argue, if I was in that room, why is the original version any better? Like, what are we really getting out of an episode with Da Vinci just dicking around,
poking around?
You're going to run into the same problems. You're going to run into the same story problems. Where it's like, well, what does he have to do?
Yeah,
build something.
Yeah,
and then what? He has a crazy wine he's never had before.
Owen comments,
whoa, a woman with 3 breasts. What is this, Paris?
JD in our live stream comments is recording just says, it's generous of you to think that they selected Da Vinci based on some sort of thematic meaning. But that's what this podcast is all about, being generous. Generous to everyone, generous to the world.
Except not generous to this episode, apparently.
One of the reviews said that at this point, Paris has just become, how'd they say it, sort of like one-liner guy on the show.
Yeah.
Which I hadn't noticed, but it is very obvious. He'll chime in with some, what is he says something in this one. He says, like, it feels like we've been mugged. Yeah, that's what he says. He goes, it feels like I've been mugged. And it's like, that's his entire contribution to the episode, is just to say some nonsense.
He is the progenitor of the, well, that happened guy.
Yeah.
That is in all of these things now. That's when you just whittle away all the creativity, and it comes down to someone doing like an eye bump or woof, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Boy, I hated this episode. Let's go to final thoughts and patron thoughts here. You can support the show at patreon.com/The Pensky File. If you're so inclined, and you can be like JD in the comments right now, you can watch the live stream of us recording these episodes. That's only available at patreon.com/The Pensky File. Whole bunch of podcasts over there, whole bunch of stuff. Patreon.com/The Pensky File. So we'll go with our patron thoughts. People can leave thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we read them on the show concerning flights. The first one here, I'm going to go with Kyle Barrett. At first, I thought the opening scene was merely setting the stage for a metaphor or theme the episode would explore, but no, Da Vinci learning to fly is literally what this episode is about. I was about to work out if this was a Janeway episode or a Tuvok episode, but I guess it's a Da Vinci episode. John Rhys-Davies is fun, doing his generic foreign accent he does whenever he's not playing a Brit, although I would have liked a scene of him doodling gay sex acts in the margins of his work, just like the real Da Vinci. I wonder if this is what First Contact would have been like if Berman got his way and it was set in the Renaissance Italy with Data teaming up with Leonardo, although the true star of the episode is that beautiful corduroy shirt Tuvok is wearing. 2 out of 5.
I read in the trivia that Tuvok is actually dressed the way Mirror Universe Spock is dressed?
Something like that. No, he's dressed like, is he in the first Mirror Universe DS9 episode? He might make a guest appearance in that, and I think he's wearing the same clothing that he does in that one. It's something like that. Tax Bear says, concerning flight, John Rhys-Davies just doesn't do much for me, even though it was interesting to see a hologram interpret everything within the parameters of its programming. JC Superstar says, concerning flight, every time I see Da Vinci, I know I'm about to be indefinitely underwhelmed. 1 out of 5. Some short ones here. I'll just burn through these. Artorius says, concerning flight, John Rhys-Davies is fun to watch, and Tuvok was stellar as a sassy Vulcan in the episode. The episode left me at a loss about what was the point. It played with several ideas but never decided which one it wanted to be. Unfortunately, it could not take flight and get off the ground under the weight of its own indecision. 2 failed flights out of 5. Point Extra G says, concerning flight, it's John Rhys-Davies. I can't say anything bad about an episode with him in it. You can't. Leonardo and Katerina having an adventure on an alien world. It's great. I want more stuff like this. Someone's been drinking. Here, I'll give you this one. This is a little bit longer. Where the hell's your Discord comment? There it is. This is Malo Perverso.
Concerning flight. Not much to comment about in this episode. If you ask me, I guess it was better than watching paint dry. But I must say that it seemed that the Leonardo da Vinci actor could have sure afforded to lose a few pounds. Because in my humble opinion, he'd look just a tad better thin. Parentheses, ner. Exclamation point.
Thank you, Malo. Jaron Hatch says, concerning flight, boy, for an episode that has a soaring climax that sure lands flat, doesn't it? This should be an easy win for the show. Not only do we have pirates attacking Voyager for irreplaceable supplies and equipment, which is appropriately on brand for this particular series, but you also get the perfect setup for TOS-style campy goodness with Leonardo da Vinci running around space California. And yet, all we end up with is the classic Voyager trifecta of banal, bland, and boring, which is frankly astonishing considering what they had to work with. Mulgrew and Rhys-Davies do enough heavy lifting here to win multiple gold medals, but alas, it's not enough to lift my attention from the dreaded work emails I plow through while watching this show. 2 aliens casually chasing our heroes through the foothills of LA out of 5.
I'm kind of amazed that Minosky was like, it doesn't matter how the holo emitter got on the planet, because they got one of them, right?
Yes.
Seems like it would kind of be a big deal.
You'd have to
just gone.
You'd have to explain why he hijacked it, I think. You would have to do some explaining. I guess his point is not to be so hung up on it, but
sure.
Because my interpretation is there's only one, right?
Right.
So it seems kind of important to keep it. I guess there's no reason why there couldn't be multiple holo emitters, but whatever. Changeling says, concerning flight, when I heard this episode opens with Mulgrew getting all wet with John Rhys-Davies, I expected much more interest. This episode feels like halfway through the writing process, the writers realized that they were just retreading stuff used 20 times already in Star Trek, a computer program learning to go beyond the limits of their program, but just reworked the story in a runaround with a guest actor plot. One, that is not a flying machine, but a gliding machine. Get it right with a W, Mr. Da Vinci, out of 5. Matt Ross says, concerning flight, John Rhys-Davies is always someone I want to watch, and it's too bad he was only in a few episodes. The stealing of this is the second of 2 that this character is going to be in, so that's fine. The stealing of components and pieces.
It's only 2?
Yeah.
I could have sworn we'd seen him more than once before.
I was also confused about this, and I read the memory alpha. We go into his workshop more than 2 times.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. I was confused about it because they're like, he's in 2 of 2 episodes, and his thing appears in 7 episodes or something. It's like, oh, I thought we would have seen it. The stealing of components and pieces always makes me wonder just how much of Voyager can be destroyed or taken before it's useless, and stealing of stuff is a neat story beat. The dorkiness around 7 with Kim is getting annoying, but clearly 7 causes friction everywhere with the best FU gaze by Tuvok. The alien, for all of his stolen tech, sure is an idiot for not seeing Voyager approach or recognize humans. Besides the processor, can't they replicate everything? 3 Mos Eisley's wannabe matte paintings out of 5. Final comment.
I was almost convinced they just used the same set from the Angry episode. That farm stand bazaar courtyard.
Oh
place.
yeah, the one we just watched. Yeah. It's all
Wouldn't
the same.
be surprised if it was just slightly repainted.
I actually thought my favorite set was the one where they were kind of sneaking around, and they do that very cliche thing of like the guards are walking on their. It's sort of that like piping industrial looking building. It looked different. That's all it caught me for. Groppler John Zorn says, concerning flight, welp, it's better than that shite with Amelia Earhart. 2 out of 5. I preferred the Amelia Earhart episode.
Yeah, I would take the Amelia Earhart episode over this one.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, everybody, for listening and leaving your thoughts about concerning flight. Clay, on our scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to give this one?
I'm going to give it a 2. I didn't hate it. Maybe because I don't have children. And I don't see my life slipping away as quickly.
Slipping away.
Yeah, I think it's a low 2. It is in that it exists. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's someone out there who, like, this is one of their favorite episodes just because it's, like, so inoffensive and it's just Janeway having a fun time. Like, it feels like the kind of excuse me, platonic ideal that a lot of I see a lot of people almost kind of wishing for these days, where there's really not any conflict,
no tension whatsoever.
It's just no tension, and it's just the characters you like, doing things you enjoy, you know, sitting around having a cup of tea for an hour. It's your favorite thing ever.
Yeah, it's one of my one of the viewpoints I'll never understand it. We get the comment all the time on YouTube or Discord or anything, is that there's a large contingency of people who in response to what we have to say about an episode, which could be, you know, certainly because we have to talk about the episode for 45 minutes to an hour, you kind of like get into the episode at a point. But there is a line of thought of, hey, I don't need episodes to, you know, be about anything, or like that's
sure.
Because they're like, I just like to watch the show, sure. Which I never. I feel like this is an example of like why that doesn't work for me, really. Like, and this is not a great example, but like, I'd be curious what a great example of a show just kind of putzing around for an hour is, and you're like, this is well worth my time. I find that to be that sort of feedback is like what I really hate about this episode, and why I'm going to give it a 1 is because I just feel like when the show doesn't have anything that it's talking about or trying to say, or like trying to talk to a larger point about, you know, emotional state of mind, or a ethical thing, or like a sort of like brain experiment about like what would happen if this happened to this character. If it's just like Janeway walks around in California with a guy pretending to be Leonardo da Vinci, it hits me. It just hits me as like, someone at some point should have realized that this is bad and done something about it. I understand the churn of television needs these episodes, but like, I think that like, out of anything you can do with your life, it's better than watching this episode. That's how bad this episode is. It's like this. In some ways, there are worse episodes of Star Trek, but this is such a waste of time. Such a waste of time. Like listen to a song, like go for a walk, do anything. Any of the thoughts you have on a half-hour walk are going to be better than what this episode gives you. You know, just go out.
I think those kinds of episodes can be good if you've got characters that are good enough that you can just let them be themselves, and that in and of itself is enjoyable.
Yeah, I think they're still going to talk about things in those episodes. Like, characters who are well drawn tend to have a conversation that means something. Like,
right? You
know, because the argument is a bottle show. You know, if you have the Fly episode of Breaking Bad, where it's just Walt and Jesse trying to get the fly out of that room for an hour, that sounds like that, but the episode is about their relationship with each other at that point.
Of course,
so it means something.
Yeah, this is also something I would point to when people complain about modern TV shows having filler episodes. You don't really understand what a filler episode is.
Yeah.
The Da Vinci episode, smack dab in the middle of the 4th season of Voyager, that is a filler episode.
Yeah.
And it's just, it doesn't have, there's just nothing clever or engaging about it enough to carry it over its lack of, you know, interesting story. It's just kind of hitting beats that are, you know, not really that interesting. John Rhys-Davies is fun, but again, like who gives a shit hologram Leonardo da Vinci understands how space flight works or whatever they're doing here.
I think if you replace,
it's a tough.
If you'd replace Davis with a usual bad sort of like Star Trek guest actor, I don't think the episode drops off all that much. Actually, like it's like his performance is fine, but he's not elevating it in a way, mostly because the material can't be elevated. But it's just like if you just replaced him, I don't think the episode would actually change. It's the opposite of Kurtwood Smith in Year of Hell. I think if a regular guest star took that role, I'd be like, this episode is not doing anything for me really whatsoever.
Yeah. And I honestly don't think there's, I think it would just take a couple changes to make this, a decent amount better.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you played this episode more or less the same way. You've got Da Vinci experiencing life or whatever the fuck they're doing here. And then at the end, they get back to the ship and he gets shut off. And then the next time Janeway goes back to the hologram, she turns him back on again, and he's been reset. He has no knowledge of anything that happened. Like that something like that. It's like, oh, okay, shit. Like that, even though if that doesn't actually mean anything, like I don't have a point behind that. It feels like it does.
Yes.
Which is more than the episode that exists now.
Yeah, it would feel like it had a point. Before we go, do you have any thoughts about the reconfiguring of holodeck characters that this series has done? Is this a big mistake? I'm starting to view this as kind of a big mistake because they come back to this quite frequently, it seems like to me.
Yeah, I think it should be something that is exclusive to the Doctor, because it's the holodeck has so few rules already that if you just throw the rule book out the window completely, it's just whatever. It loses any narrative weight.
Yeah, it just becomes more obvious a way to just play dress up. Really, if you start just abandoning whatever character rules that people have, or like how people view those things, and because it loses it completely. If you take this Voyager attitude and you put it on that, and we did that TNG episode, the Holo Pursuits, which is the Barclay was making like the crew members on the holodeck.
Yeah,
that episode doesn't work if you use Voyager's outlook on the holograms in that, right? Because the only reason that becomes somewhat acceptable for Barclay is because the holodeck is just a program. It's like making toys for you. Yeah. It becomes much darker if that's not the case.
Although honestly, that is what you're talking about. Kind of an interesting episode. If you've got a hologram version of Tom Paris or something who gets their hands on a holo emitter, and now you've got two Tom Parises walking around on the ship.
Yeah.
I don't know. That sounds fun.
That's where the distinction has to come from, and confuse them.
Or here's an episode idea. As part of his preparation for worst case scenario regarding 7 of 9, Tuvok creates a holodeck version of 7 of 9 that skews towards being a villain. And then that version of 7 of 9 gets out of the holodeck using the holo emitter.
Yep.
And then starts wreaking havoc, and everybody turns on 7 of 9. I don't know.
Starts standing really close to everybody. It's really freaking them out. I know. No, anything would have been better. I think the holodeck on this show is a really good example of how uninspired a lot of the show tends to be. Yeah.
Because they don't do anything novel with it. The holodeck on TNG was brand new. It was a brand new concept.
Yeah.
So they were kind of setting down the rules for it. They can kind of do whatever they want. Deep Space Nine does some interesting stuff with the holodeck, where they've got a holodeck of a different sort, where it's now part of like a gaming system.
Yeah, it's much more for darker human desires, really. Yeah,
weird sex. Yeah,
yeah.
and on this one, it's like it's not even the holodeck on Voyager is not even as interesting as the TNG holodeck because they don't. It's just they make rooms.
Yeah,
that's all they do is just make rooms.
Yeah,
with people standing in them. Sometimes 5 people, sometimes 1. You know, it's not really that interesting. Like there's no Voyager spin on the holodeck. Like it's not broken. Like there's nothing fucked up about it. It works perfectly because it's on some other fucking drive or whatever.
Yeah, it should arguably be the most important to the crew holodeck of all the series. It's the only escape that they have, and it's not viewed that way. It is as you say, just an excuse to make a different room where people can stand in, which is pretty sad. How
about an episode where they have to conserve power, and so holodeck usage has to be done in groups.
Yeah.
So now you have to share 5 people who have to share a holodeck program. So you have to figure out what they can do that 5 people will enjoy. I don't know.
Don't open that file. No, it should. I don't. It's Voyager being lazy, I think. Voyager. A strange show. That's it for this one. We're done with Concerning Flight. If we're back next week, we'll cover whatever the next episode is. If not, Mortal Coil. Okay. So Mortal Coil is the next episode. So I'm going to give this one a 5. Clay gives it a 2. And I guess we're done. Patreon.com/The Pensky Files. Support us there. All kinds of stuff. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Did you know the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990 was, for a while, the most successful independent film ever made?
Well.
Yeah.
It made $10 million or something. But, I mean, obviously for scale. I'm surprised it was independent, I guess, really.
Yeah, I can't remember the specifics of it. I know it was distributed by New Line, but I don't know if New Line was the company that actually made the movie.
Yeah.
And New Line, I don't know if New Line at that point was still considered an independent film company. I'm not really sure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and I think it might have been Blair Witch that unseated it, unless there's another one in there, in the mid-90s that I'm forgetting. But
yeah. Would you rather watch the Ninja Turtles or Blair Witch?
Ninja Turtles, 100%. I am looking for. I'm assuming it's on our list, Rotten Horror Picture Show list, which is the horror movie podcast we do. Check out our Patreon. We're doing the Halloween movies this year. I'm assuming that's on the list.
You got to respect it. You got to respect its place in history. You put it on that list.
Yeah, like I came to that. I'm looking forward to rewatching it. I've only watched that once.
Yes,
and I watched it way too late. Like I had.
Oh, you didn't see it in the theater?
No,
okay.
No. I didn't see it until well after it came out on video. So I already knew everything about it because I was really fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And so by the time I saw it, I already knew all the ins and outs and stuff. And so I didn't really think it was that interesting. But
I still think its ending belongs on a great moments in horror history.
Yes.
I think like
the ending is fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a long way to go for a spooky sandwich.
But the Ninja Turtles movie amazes me every time I watch it.
Still holds up.
I still think it's unbelievable. Those suits are amazing.
I haven't seen that in a long time. Maybe I'll watch that.
It's really
at some
good.
Point. All right, that's it. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. Check out Patreon, all that stuff. We'll be back with Mortal Coil next week. See ya.